Icebergs. They're cold, they're dangerous, and we only ever really see the surface of them. And because of that, they've actually become a trend recently. If you're not familiar with the iceberg trend, it's a list of facts or pieces of information from a certain topic. At the top of the list, or the tip of the iceberg if you will, these facts and pieces of information are well-known facts about the specific topic you're talking about. But as you go deeper down the iceberg, these facts progressively become more strange and mysterious and even pretty creepy. There are multiple examples of these icebergs all over the internet, the most popular apparently being the Super Mario 64 one, but you can apply this concept to anything really. I recently watched a Blame It on Jorge video covering an iceberg on Lost Media, which was the first time I had ever seen one of these icebergs before. I thought it was a pretty interesting idea, and wanted to cover one for my own video. So I looked up any dinosaur related icebergs, and sure enough one of the first ones to pop up was a Jurassic Park one. There were actually a few different types of Jurassic Park icebergs, but this specific one was the one I liked most. This image was created by Reddit user abandonedxearth. Huge thanks to them for letting me use this iceberg for my video. They did a very good job as they not only listed multiple pieces of information that hold the most obscure things I'd ever seen from this franchise, but also this person went out of their way to color code everything. This will make my job a bit easier. So without further ado, let's go ahead and take a look at the Jurassic Park iceberg. This first part is pretty simple. The only things that consist of this section are the movies themselves, so I guess the easiest way to obtain everything you need to know as far as the surface of this franchise is to just watch the movies. But let's go through them. Jurassic Park. When Jurassic Park roared into theaters in 1993, it became an instant classic to most. In fact, it was so popular that it would spawn multiple sequels, countless pieces of merchandise, a short film, and a TV series, and much more. Jurassic Park revolved around two paleontologists and a mathematician being invited to an island owned by John Hammond, who brought them here in the hopes that they would endorse his theme park that contained genetically modified dinosaurs. Of course, things go wrong, the dinosaurs get loose, and start wreaking havoc across the island. The movie itself is actually pretty ambiguous, as there are several aspects of the movie that are kinda left out that seem pretty crucial, but these aspects will be covered later. The Lost World. Jurassic Park's first sequel, The Lost World Jurassic Park, took things to a different direction with the franchise. And I mean that quite literally, as this movie doesn't take place on Isla Nublar, the island that Jurassic Park took place on. Instead, this movie takes place on Isla Sorna, one of the neighboring islands to Isla Nublar. The Lost World revolves around Ian Malcolm, the mathematician from the first film, who is forced to go back to the island when he realizes his girlfriend, who studies wild animals for a living, went to this island alone willingly. You know, saying this concept out loud makes me feel like I can see why people were pretty mixed with this movie back in the day when it first came out. Hell, they're still mixed about it nowadays. Anyways, things are different now, since on this island the dinosaurs are more wild and loose, as there aren't any enclosures keeping them contained. Jurassic Park 3. Jurassic Park 3 is the first of the Jurassic movies to not be directed by Steven Spielberg, and was instead directed by Joe Johnston. Due to several factors and issues this film had, it became notorious in the Jurassic fanbase as one, if not the worst Jurassic film to ever be made. The film revolves around Dr. Alan Grant pretty much being kidnapped and forced to help a couple find their missing kid who went parasailing near the island and got stranded in the process. Little do they know there's a new threat on the island that proves itself to be more aggressive and dangerous than the T-Rex. Jurassic World. 14 years after the release of Jurassic Park 3, the series was continued with the rebranded Jurassic World trilogy, which is still currently going on. But this began in 2015 with the first Jurassic World being centered around raptor trainer Owen Grady and park manager Claire Deering, and a fully functional dinosaur-themed park with actual guests. This is the first we actually go back to Isla Sorna since the first film. As you would have guessed, things go wrong, and soon a new hybrid theropod breaks out of its enclosure and wreaks havoc across the park. Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom revolves around the same main characters, only this time they're on a rescue mission to save as many dinosaurs as they can from Isla Nublar, which has an active volcano on it that's about to erupt. The rescued dinosaurs are brought to the mainland, where things go even more wrong when it's revealed that another hybrid dinosaur breaks out of its containment. This film ends with dinosaurs being loose all around Northern California, with other dinosaurs being transported to other parts of the world, indicating that this universe is slowly but truly becoming a Jurassic World. Jurassic World Dominion. Even though it's on the list, we don't actually know anything about Jurassic World Dominion, as it hasn't been released yet. I'm sure this movie will contain more information and lore for the franchise, especially considering a whole other trilogy is apparently going to be worked on after Dominion. Anyways, we'll most likely have a follow-up to this video, but until then, that's all there is for this first section. So if you're a real Jurassic Park fan, then you've at least seen all the movies, therefore that last section shouldn't have been anything new. It's possible that this section probably isn't going to have anything you don't already know either, but it's worth a look nonetheless. Michael Crichton Jurassic Park books. Jurassic Park was an amazing movie, and its source material is just as amazing. Jurassic Park was originally a novel written by Michael Crichton, and it was much darker than its movie counterpart. The book features many horrifying and graphic moments, including a baby being eaten alive by Compsognathus. Michael Crichton also wrote The Lost World, and just like the first novel, it was very different from its movie counterpart, but we'll get to this later. Crichton didn't write any other Jurassic Park books after The Lost World. Jurassic World Live Tour. The Jurassic World Live Tour is a live event that actually has a confirmed canon storyline. Apparently this storyline takes place between the events of Jurassic World and Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. It revolves around Dr. Kate Walker and her team of scientists that created a Dino decoder, a device meant to help humans understand dinosaur emotions. They've been testing this device on a Troodon named Genie, who they separate from during the Indominus Rex breakout. The team is now on a rescue mission for Genie, and while all of this is happening, they find out that InGen are pretty interested in their Dino decoder, as they are still interested in weaponizing dinosaurs. The setting changes from Isla Nublar to the InGen facility in Chile, and eventually back to Isla Nublar. I never watched this tour myself, but it sounds pretty interesting, and with this concept being canon, I'm surprised this doesn't seem like a much bigger deal, but that maybe has to do with the pandemic, I would think. Jurassic World Evolution. Jurassic World Evolution is a dinosaur park simulator game that allows you to build and manage your own Jurassic World. While the story takes a lot from the franchise, Colin Trevorrow, the director for 2015's Jurassic World, confirmed that it's only soft canon. The game itself is centered around building parks on all of the island changed from the movies that I'll go more in depth with later. The game has managed to create its own story using several aspects from the movies, but there's nothing too out of the ordinary with it. Universal Studios ride. Universal Studios has a Jurassic Park ride that was inspired by a scene in the novel where Lex, Tim, and Dr. Grant ride a raft through the rivers of Isla Nublar. This part of the book never made it into the movies, but was the foundation for the Jurassic Park ride in Universal Studios in Orlando, Florida, and in Osaka, Japan. The ride consists of animatronic dinosaurs and an 80-foot drop. There's also a Jurassic World version of this that actually serves more as an updated version to its Jurassic Park counterpart. It completely replaced the Jurassic Park ride at Universal Studios Hollywood, and also featured animatronic dinosaurs and even an attack from the Mosasaur. Jurassic Park Trespasser. Jurassic Park Trespasser is a 1998 Microsoft Windows game that served as a sequel to The Lost World. The events take place a year after The Lost World, and you play as Anne, a plane crash survivor that is now stranded on the island, where the only way to get off is to solve puzzles as you travel across the island, running into all sorts of dinosaurs including Velociraptors, Stegosaurus, and Albertosaurus. Overall, the game didn't do too well, as it received mainly negative scores, but nowadays people seem to praise it for its story and how it fills some gaps from the movies, even if it's not all that canon. That, or maybe it's just an ongoing meme within the Jurassic community, I don't really know. Jurassic Park arcade games. I remember always going to visit my grandparents in Lake Tahoe, and there would always be an arcade at the nearby hotel that we would make an effort in visiting before we would leave back home. In this arcade you had all of your normal games, but the one that I absolutely loved the most as a kid was the Jurassic Park arcade game. It's a rail shooter game developed by Sega in 1994, and apparently takes place a few months after the events of the film. This wasn't the only Jurassic Park arcade game, as there was another developed by Raw Thrills and released in 2015. This one seems to have more of a story, as the security team has been sent to Isla Nublar to retrieve a dinosaur species from the island, right as the island's volcano is about to erupt. Wow, that concept sounds very familiar. Sega also released a Jurassic World arcade game in 1997 that revolves around a rescue team sent to go find Ian Malcolm and Sarah Harding after they go missing on Isla Sorna. And of course, there's a Jurassic Park 3 arcade game that also revolves around a rescue team searching for people who crash landed on Isla Sorna. And lastly, there's the Jurassic World VR experience from Dave & Buster's that seems to take place during the Mount Zibo eruption in Fallen Kingdom. There were more of these arcade games than I first thought, so if there was anything that I missed, then do let me know in the comments. Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous. Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous is the first ever spin-off TV series for the franchise. It takes place during the events of the 2015 Jurassic World movie, and it revolves around a group of kids that join a camp program at Jurassic World, but get abandoned shortly before the Indominus Rex breakout. They have to rely on each other to make it across the island towards the docks to try and make it off. There isn't a whole lot of lore worked in here quite yet, and the show doesn't seem to fill in too many gaps. Overall, it doesn't seem to provide much, but it seems to have a positive reception from the general public. InGen. Next, we have InGen, the very company founded by John Hammond and responsible for the research done to recreate dinosaurs and exploit them in a theme park. It has a very rich history within the Jurassic franchise and is still around even to this newest trilogy. Somewhat. It underwent the transition for John Hammond to Simon Masrani after Hammond passed away in 1997. There's a lot of story behind this company, in fact enough to make a whole separate video on this topic. One much longer than the one that you're watching now. But for the sake of time, I think I'll just link an article to the entire history if you want to know more about it. Deleted scenes. Next, we have the deleted scenes. Apparently there are several deleted scenes within all 5 films that we currently have, but the ones I'm most familiar with are the Lost World ones. These scenes range from concepts and ideas that have been thrown out or rejected before being filmed, to full-on scenes that would have served as crucial pieces of information to our characters. Most of these quote-unquote deleted scenes were very minor things that would have just extended the scenes that we already see in the movies that were most likely cut out due to time. There's not much to talk about here, as most of the ones that have been filmed can be found around the internet, but there are a couple that might have been finished that possibly no one's ever seen. Clayton Fioriti. Next on the list we have Clayton Fioriti. Clayton Fioriti is one of, if not the most well-known Jurassic Park enthusiast, as he has a whole channel dedicated to just talking about really anything relating to the franchise. In fact, I bet you guys know most of this stuff on this iceberg because of him, as he goes very in-depth with many topics he covers with these movies. Jurassic Park the Game. Jurassic Park the Game was developed by Telltale Games, and it took place during the events of the first film. While it has some plot holes, the story within the game fits very nicely within the story of the first movie. It fills in some gaps and even goes out of its way to explain certain things that remain a mystery in the franchise, like what ended up happening with the Barbasol canister. Despite this, it's been confirmed that it should be only seen as soft canon to the rest of the series. The story revolves around Jerry Harding, a character that had a much bigger role in the novel, but not so much in the movie. He and his daughter are stranded on the island during the breakout and try to find their way off, as they not only try to survive the dinosaurs, but also other people they meet along the way. Jurassic Park Alive. So for this one, I think they meant to say Jurassic World Alive. I couldn't find anything that actually held the title for Jurassic Park Alive. Jurassic World Alive is a Pokemon Go styled game where you have to go out into the world and find dinosaurs that you can dart and collect DNA from. You can use this DNA that you collected to create your own roster of dinosaurs and level them up so you can use them to fight in an arena to gain more resources. NES games. Now, I don't know too much information on these older Jurassic Park games, so if I get anything wrong, I do apologize. From what I can find, it looks like there was a Game Boy version of Jurassic Park and a Super NES version of it. The idea was more or less the same, with you having to survive on an island full of dinosaurs while completing various missions to get the island back online. LEGO Jurassic Park movies and specials. Lastly, for this section, we have the LEGO Jurassic Park movies and specials. There are actually a lot of these specials that I didn't even really know existed. They include the Indominus Rex Escape, Double Trouble, The Legend of Isla Nublar, and The Secret Exhibit. Given the contents of these specials, I think it's safe to say they're not canon, as most of them seem to veer off in a different direction with their story and the ridiculous and comedic style that LEGO is known for having. I think more than anything they were created as a way to introduce a much younger audience into the overall franchise. And that concludes everything we have in the second section. Probably nothing new or crazy or even creepy for you guys, but the strangest parts of this franchise are yet to come. So let's see what's in Section 3. Abandoned sets. So the first thing we have here is abandoned sets. From what I can find, the movie sets that were abandoned include various places. As far as Jurassic Park goes, most of the sets apparently didn't survive the hurricane that had hit Kauai, the place that they were filming at the time. Little of it actually remains, and as far as the other movies go, I couldn't really find too much information on their sets and why they were abandoned, but I was able to find some pictures here and there. Nedry's original, more gruesome death. As I mentioned earlier, the Jurassic Park novel was much more graphic and dark than the movie. The deaths you see in Jurassic Park were either heavily pruned or off-screen, but in the novel, you're there for the whole thing. And what's worse, it's explained in very graphic detail. Dennis Nedry was one of the poor souls that suffered a rather intense and brutal death at the claws and teeth of a Dilophosaurus. Now, this is nothing new, as we've pretty much seen this from the movie, but there is one line from the novel that makes all the difference. Nedry stumbled, reaching blindly down to touch the ragged edge of his shirt, and then a thick slivery mass that was surprisingly warm. And with horror, he suddenly knew he was holding his own intestines in his hands. The dinosaur had torn him open. His guts had fallen out. Battle at Big Rock. Battle at Big Rock is a 10-minute short that was originally supposed to play before another Universal movie in the theaters, but was announced that it was going to instead air on the FX channel on TV. The short film would later be released on YouTube for free viewership to all. The short revolves around a traveling family that reside in a trailer park that encounters a Nasutoceratops family and a fully grown Allosaurus. Despite its short runtime, it was praised by many as a solid short film that had pretty much everything a Jurassic Park fan would want. I myself really enjoyed this short, and you can see my thoughts on it on my channel as I did a much more in-depth review of it. Biosyn. Biosyn is the competing company to InGen. They're also a genetics company that are responsible for the corporate espionage that took place within the first film. Although it's not outright confirmed, as even though we see Dodgson in the beginning of the movie, someone who is confirmed to work with Biosyn in the novel, it's never actually heard outright in the movie. Regardless, it's described as a company that isn't known for their research, but rather as a company that employs spies to steal ideas from other companies. Dinosaur Protection Group. Having a whole website dedicated to it, the Dinosaur Protection Group is a program founded by Claire Deering that spreads awareness and protects the rights of the dinosaurs that, at the time, were still stuck on Isla Nublar before the Mount Staibo eruption. There isn't a whole lot of relevancy with this group, aside from the fact that its only real purpose is to give Claire some character development and motivation to go back to the island and save the dinosaurs. The group also consists of two side characters from Fallen Kingdom, Zia and Franklin, but aside from that, I don't have much else to say on it. Unused dinosaur models. This one's going to be a fun one. There were several unused dinosaurs within the span of these 5 movies, ranging from things that showed up in the novel that just never made an appearance in the movie, to actual models and designs being created for the sole purpose of filming with that just never made it into the final cut. Things like Plesiosaurus, Ouranosaurus, and Euplocephalus showed up in screenplays and pitches for the movies that were never added. But other dinosaurs, like the Parasaurolophus corpse model that was supposed to replace the Ornitholestes corpse from the Lost World novel, were also cut. Fun fact, even though this Parasaurolophus was cut from its intended scene, it was used later in the film at the T-Rex nest, and it was even repainted and used later in Jurassic Park 3 as the carcass the T-Rex was feeding on. Dr. Henry Wu's timeline and backstory. Dr. Henry Wu's backstory is a long one, and one that I'm not going to go too in-depth with just because I got a lot of other stuff to cover today. But to summarize, Dr. Henry Wu was a graduate student who studied genetics. He was studying under geneticist Professor Norman Atherton at Stanford, someone who was heavily associated with John Hammond. Dr. Wu was considered the best geneticist by Dr. Atherton, and when he passed away, both Dr. Wu and Hammond attended the funeral, where Hammond would approach Wu offering him a job to help him recreate dinosaurs, to which Wu accepted. He later met Laura Sorkins, and they both had different ideas to how they would complete the DNA genome for the dinosaurs, with Sorkins saying they should wait until they have a complete strand, and Dr. Wu saying they should instead fill those gaps with frog DNA. Of course, they went with his plan as it proved to be a faster method, and because of this incident, Sorkins began to resent both Hammond and Wu. And eventually with that, InGen is able to successfully create their own dinosaurs. I'm sure there's more to his story that I left out, so if I missed anything, be sure to let me know in the comments below. San Diego Incident 1997. The San Diego incident refers to the T-Rex that managed to make its way onto the mainland in the Lost World movie after it was sedated and taken off of Isla Sorna to be transported and placed in the San Diego exhibits. It ended up breaking out of the ship it was traveling in and began terrorizing the streets of San Diego until its young was used to lure it back to the docks and back into the ship, where it was then shot by a sedative by Sarah Harding. The making of the Lost World. Not really sure what this one's trying to entail. All of the making of and behind the scenes for the Lost World that I've seen aren't too out of the ordinary. Maybe there's something I'm missing? Let me know in the comments. Nick Van Owen's disappearance. Next we have Nick Van Owen's disappearance, which is something that apparently remains a mystery even today. I can't really find much on this except a Clayton Fioriti video that covers one theory that he might have just stayed behind to watch Kelly while the San Diego incident took place, but there's nothing too concrete here. The Lost World book tells an entirely different story than the movie. So this is a very factual thing. It's no mystery that Steven Spielberg decided to use nothing from the source material for Jurassic Park's first sequel. Crichton was very hesitant to make a sequel for Jurassic Park because he had never really written a sequel for any of his books, as he felt like it wasn't necessary. But with the pressure of his fans and of Spielberg himself, since he liked the idea of doing a sequel for Jurassic Park, Crichton decided to resurrect the character he needed most and wrote, in my opinion, an equally phenomenal sequel. But most of the things written in that novel didn't make it into the movie. Some of the bigger things off the top of my head include the camouflaging Carnotaurs, the return of Dodgson, and the dead Ornitholestes. There were several other things, but that could literally be a whole video on its own. Alternative movie endings. Lastly, we have the alternative movie endings. The original apparently had two alternative endings. The first of these endings for Jurassic Park included a T-Rex chasing our characters to a helicopter pad where they would try to escape, only for the T-Rex to actually grab a hold of the helicopter. The second one is actually not as epic, as it would feature a raptor versus human standoff, with Grant using construction equipment to kill two raptors and Hammond shooting the final raptor. From there, they would just board a helicopter and leave the island. I couldn't really find an alternate ending for The Lost World, although I do remember reading that there might have been a scene at the end featuring a pterosaur attacking a helicopter, but was switched out for the San Diego scene instead. If you know more about this, I'd like to hear it. For Jurassic Park 3, there were two alternate endings that I know of, one of the Spinosaurus being killed off by a pack of raptors, and one that featured the Spinosaurus attacking the Marines after our characters left the island. There doesn't seem to be alternative endings for either the Jurassic World movies, so let's go ahead and move on. And that concludes part 3. This one seems to have some more stuff that I'm assuming other people already knew, but I think this is where things begin to take a turn to the more mysterious. Let's go ahead and take a look at the next section. The Lost World original script. So earlier I mentioned that there was an alternate ending to the Lost World movie, and that I remember reading about it during my research process for this video, but that I couldn't find it during that particular section. Well, I found it in the original script of the Lost World movie. Apparently there was an ending that featured pteranodons attacking a helicopter, along with other things that make it a pretty wild ending. There's a whole raptor attack sequence still, and before that even starts, Ludlow is killed by the T-Rex as he's trying to hunt one down with Roland. There's even an ending sequence with Hammond's funeral. Overall, there are many aspects changed from this original script, with the addition of a fifth member, a paleontologist named Mr. Judson, and the whole San Diego sequence being cut out from the film. This was the only script I could find, so I'm assuming this is the one that he or she was talking about for the iceberg. If not, don't hesitate to correct me in the comments below. Triceratops Encounter. I believe this refers to the attraction at Universal's Islands of Adventure. It was also known as the Triceratops Discovery Trail, and it consisted of 3 Triceratops animatronics named Topper, Sarah, and Chris, and the attraction itself was about the Triceratops being under vet care for the audience to see. However, this attraction closed down in 2010. Site C. Site C was an island located around 750 kilometers away from the 5 deaths in the South Pacific. Apparently this was a place in which Hammond was able to conduct research and assembly of the advanced computer systems of Jurassic Park. Hammond pretended to use the island for some future tourist attraction. Hammond was able to expand the island's land and place several research centers there, but after the events of Jurassic Park and the eventual bankruptcy of InGen, he was forced to shut it down, and even had to blow it up alongside Isla Nublar. However, the bombs only struck and destroyed the buildings, leaving all of the dinosaurs alive to roam and overtake the island. This one doesn't seem to be movie canon, since Nublar wasn't blown up in the movie franchise, at least as far as I'm concerned. Jurassic Park San Diego location. The Jurassic Park San Diego location was an attempt at bringing the attraction to the people, as they quite literally built a Jurassic Park attraction in San Diego with the full intention of placing dinosaurs in it. That was basically the whole plot of The Lost World, but as you could tell, that failed horribly. Owen Grady is one of the soldiers in Jurassic Park 3. People back this theory up with the fact that Owen Grady was in the Navy, and while it's not impossible, I think many find it improbable for this to be the case. Plus, even if this was the case, it doesn't really impact too much in terms of the plot, so let's just go ahead and move on. Jurassic Park Project Evolution. This one is also going to be a fun one. Jurassic Park Project Evolution was probably one of the weirdest attempts at a Jurassic Park attraction. As I mentioned earlier, Universal had its Islands of Adventure, but during Halloween they would put on a special horror event called Halloween Horror Nights 12 Islands of Fear. One of the islands they had was a Jurassic Park one known as Jurassic Park Extinction. This attraction would feature a mad scientist named Dr. Burton who accidentally made a human Dilophosaurus hybrid and another crazy-ass dinosaur hybrid called the Grebnadu, which has a weird-ass design. All of these creatures are running rampant across the island, but one of the houses that replaced the Triceratops Encounter attraction was Jurassic Park Project Evolution. Within this attraction, it included a decapitated Triceratops, velociraptors popping from bushes, the hanging body of Dr. Burton, and even more human dinosaur hybrids. This shit was weird, but it sounds fucking awesome. Project IBRIS. The IBRIS project stands for the Integrated Behavioral Raptor Intelligence Study, which is a program that worked on training raptors for military purposes. This program was overseen by Vic Hoskins, and Owen Grady was hired to train the raptors, which consisted of the squad we know from 2015's Jurassic World. Return to Jurassic Park comic series. Return to Jurassic Park is the fourth comic series that served as a continuation from the events of the first Jurassic Park movie. It features some of the on-film characters like Dr. Grant, Dr. Sadler, and Robert Muldoon. Apparently this series spanned about 9 issues, with the first few covering the fallout after the abandonment of Jurassic Park, and the rest consist of a team that John Hammond sends back to the island that includes the names I just mentioned along with some new characters. Jurassic Park Adventures Survivor. Jurassic Park Adventures Survivor is the first of, I believe, 3 books written by Scott Sienkiewicz? I don't know. I'm sorry if I don't think I said any of those right. This specific book revolves around Eric Kirby and takes place before the events of Jurassic Park 3. This covers the 8 weeks that he was stranded on the island before he was discovered by Dr. Alan Grant in the 3rd movie. Jurassic Park 4 completed script. John Sayles' version of Jurassic Park 4 was interesting and would revolve around a new character by the name of Nick Harris, an ex-Navy SEAL who would be sent to Isla Nublar by John Hammond to retrieve the canister of dinosaur embryos that Nedry left behind before his death. How Hammond would know about this canister, I have no idea, but the reason why he wants it is because it's the only piece of genetic material he needs to fulfill his goal of making what he calls highly aggressive but reproductively neutered individuals as an attempt to wipe out the last living dinosaurs. At this point, Jurassic Park had been overtaken by a Swiss company known as Grendel Corporation. There's a lot with this script that I wouldn't be able to explain at the moment, but I'll leave a link in the description below for it, as I genuinely find it an interesting read of what could have been. Cancel Jurassic Park TV show. Escape from Jurassic Park would take place immediately after the events of Jurassic Park, and would be entirely animated. Despite this, it was targeted at a more mature audience, but the series was eventually cancelled, much to many people's dismay when they found out about its existence, as it held a lot of potential. I'm sure you can find the transcript somewhere around the internet for season 1, but besides that and concept art, that's all we pretty much have on this series. Owen Grady is the kid that Alan Grant talks to in the beginning of the first movie. Apparently, this rumor was debunked by the guy who played the kid himself, Whit Hertford. He confirmed this on Twitter that this wasn't the case, but it's possible this could be a joke and maybe this theory does hold up. Apparently, the age of the kid at the time would match up perfectly with Owen Grady's age, but I don't have much to say on this, as it would only serve as a surprising little coincidence if it was true. And that concludes the 4th section of this iceberg. I wouldn't be too surprised if there was at least a couple of things you didn't know on here, but there's even more stuff to cover, so let's move on to section 5. Cloud Island. Isla Nublar translates to Cloud Island. In general, Isla Nublar is pretty mysterious and has quite the history, but I'm not sure if they're just referring to the translation or the island in general. Benjamin Lockwood in original book. I couldn't really find much on this one. The most I could find was that Lockwood kind of replaces the role of another character from the book known as Norman Atherton. To me, it's in the same vein as the Owen was the annoying kid from Jurassic Park theory. It would only serve as a surprising coincidence, and really nothing more. Jurassic Park Survival. Jurassic Park Survival was an adventure game that was supposed to be released in November of 2001, but was ultimately cancelled. Apparently, it was supposed to revolve around a team sent by the government visiting a secret third island to study the dinosaurs' behavior. As you can imagine, things go wrong. Las Cinco Muertes. Las Cinco Muertes, or the Five Deaths, refers to the 5 chain of islands aside from Isla Nublar, which include Isla Montanceros, Isla Muerte, Isla Tacaño, Isla Pena, and of course Isla Sorna. Spinosaurus bones in Jurassic World. There's a theory that the Spinosaurus bones from Jurassic World were from the Spinosaurus in Jurassic Park 3. While I can't say it's impossible, I'm not sure if it's entirely true. Yes, the Spinosaurus is confirmed dead according to what's been given from the DPG site, but I can't say for sure if that's true. As far as this theory goes, it seems that many people are actually stumped and don't know for sure whether or not the Spinosaurus bones really belong to the JP3 Spinosaurus. If it is, it's a nice little subtle revenge for the T-Rex. Other 4 islands. There's a theory that there are 4 other islands aside from the 5 Deaths and Isla Nublar that are part of the movie franchise. The evidence for this shows up through labeled files that appear on Ray Arnold's computer screen in the first film. I know that this may seem like a stretch, but people have speculated that these islands are not part of the 5 Deaths. There have been a few different theories as to what these 4 other islands could be, but I suggest watching Clayton's video on it, as he does a great job explaining this theory. And that concludes this section. Not much here, but interesting nonetheless. But now we're below the iceberg and things are going to get a bit more mysterious and even weird. There's a lot here, so let's check it out. Jurassic World takes place in a separate universe where the second and third movie never happened. This one is pretty self-explanatory, but I couldn't really find anything on it, and I myself don't know enough to know the plausibility of this theory, but it's a rather interesting one. I'm surprised it hasn't been explored more. InGen's Tylosaurus. The only time we ever really got to see the InGen's Tylosaurus was in the Telltale's Jurassic Park game, where apparently wasn't even referred to as a Tylosaurus, but rather a Mosasaurus. This creature was supposed to be a part of an exhibit made for Phase 2 of the park, and was set to open sometime after the park was officially opened. The DX virus. The DX virus refers to the theory developed by Ian Malcolm in The Lost World that the dinosaurs would eventually develop a prion disease called DX. Apparently, the virus came from the sheep meat that the handlers used to feed the carnivores with. Some of those carnivores died within the island and their carcasses were fed on by compies and raptors, spreading this disease even faster and eventually overtaking all of the dinosaurs on the island, causing them to become re-extinct. Jurassic Park Number 0. Jurassic Park Number 0 is a special collector's edition comic that served as a prequel to Topps Jurassic Park series. It revolved around Donald Gennaro visiting Jurassic Park while still under construction to talk to John Hammond about the park's investors, only for Hammond to be called into the lab to witness the park's first dinosaur hatch from its egg, which is implied to be a Tyrannosaurus Rex. The story is split into 2 parts, one being called Genesis, which is the one that I just explained, and the second one being Betrayal, which is about Dennis Nedry and his time working up to being the park's programmer. Devils in the Desert. Devils in the Desert is another Jurassic Park comic about strange killings happening in a small American town. You could probably tell where this is going, but yeah, the dinosaurs are responsible for these killings. The story has a whole bunch of new characters, it's supposed to take place sometime after Jurassic Park 3, and the whole plot pretty much sounds similar to that of a B-movie, but in that sense I'm kind of interested in it. Dangerous Games. Jurassic Park Dangerous Games is yet another comic book, and one that is a huge departure from the Jurassic series in terms of plot, as it involves a drug lord who now owns the island 11 years after the events of Jurassic Park. This drug lord has converted the visitor center to a fortress and throws our main character, a CIA agent, into the jungle with nothing but a dagger. The agent has 24 hours before he is hunted down by the drug lord's men, and at the same time he has to try and survive the island itself that, you guessed it, is full of dinosaurs. Michael Crichton's third novel draft. There was some talk back in the days of Jurassic Park 3's development of Michael Crichton possibly making a third book for the Jurassic Park series. I'm assuming this is what this person was talking about for the Iceberg, as this apparently was a pretty big rumor back in that time, as many speculated that this third novel would actually be a prequel to Jurassic Park. But it seems that speculation is as far as it ever got, so not much to cover here, although it is a very interesting thought. Dinosaurs that are not on InGen's list but exist. There's a whole list of dinosaurs unaccounted for, with some of them being alive. Some of these aren't on InGen's list, like Ceratosaurus and Spinosaurus, while others, like Nasutoceratops and the now confirmed Giganotosaurus, are listed under uncertain entries. I'm not sure if this is the correct thing the person was referring to in the iceberg, but it was the only thing I could really find. If you know anything else, I'm all ears. Oscar Morales. Oscar Morales was a character in the Telltale's Jurassic Park game. I don't really know why he's here, or why he's this far down the list. Maybe it has to do with his history with the removal of the indigenous people of Isla Nublar, and when I mean removal, I mean he ended up killing some of them. Every dinosaur has a disease. Don't really know why this one is labeled as a theory. I was able to find an article on the Jurassic Park Ecology Wiki explaining that each dinosaur species on the island had a different disease and that they needed expert treatment. But I couldn't tell you if this was official or not, so maybe this is just a theory. Other than this, I couldn't really find a whole lot on it. Well, this certainly was an interesting section, but not much to talk about here, as a lot of it were things I couldn't really find around the internet. Maybe I didn't look hard enough, or maybe these theories aren't as widely talked about. Anyways, let's just go ahead and move on to the next section. Isla Muerta, Isla Pena, and Isla Tacaño. Isla Muerta, Isla Pena, and Isla Tacaño are the other islands from the 5 deaths, but that's already been mentioned here, so I'm not really sure why they're included again, only separately. Also, what happened to Isla Montanceros? Mayan ruins on Isla Sorna. Back in its distant past, inhabitants from Isla Sorna built structures including temples and pyramids that are featured in the Trespasser game. Every dinosaur is slowly physically rotting. In a draft written by Malia Scotch Marmo, there would be bigger consequences to genetically breeding the dinosaurs so quickly, as doing so with little information on their needs being available would result in the dinosaurs slowly dying and having short lifespans. I think the reason why this is labeled as a theory is because even though this was an unused draft, this draft also included the dinosaurs' DNA sequences being filled with frog DNA, something that was also used in the final draft. So maybe it still holds up in the film's universe? Who knows? Norman Atherton. Norman Atherton was the chief geneticist in the early years of InGen and was Henry Wu's teacher. Before he died of heart cancer, he told Hammond about Wu, which is how the two met and how Wu was eventually offered a job at Jurassic Park. Jurassic Park Regenesis. Jurassic Park Regenesis was a cancelled interactive comic series with CGI shorts that was supposed to serve as a prequel to Jurassic World. Apparently it was axed early on, but it looks like a fan-made version of it is being made, with the name now being Jurassic World Regenesis. Escape from Jurassic Park Lost. I'm guessing from what this is trying to state, there's a lost comic version of Escape from Jurassic Park, which was the name of the cancelled animated series. If you guys know more about this, I'd like to know. Harold Greenwood. Harold Greenwood was John Hammond's friend in the Trespasser game. He was described as confident, dashing, and a former Green Beret. John Hammond liked him, but for some reason Greenwood's skeleton was found on Isla Sorna. Apparently he was injured and tried to hide from velociraptors and eventually starved to death. There was a theory that he was maybe a spy sent by Biosyn, as later in the game you would discover a crashed Biosyn helicopter. Maybe he was in that helicopter? Who knows? Raptor Aftershocks. Raptor Aftershocks is the first of Topps Jurassic Park Raptor comics, and it tells the story of the events that happened after that of Jurassic Park. This alternative story features the Tyrannosaurus battling tanks and Dr. Alan Grant and Ellie Sadler going on the hunt for raptors on the island as a way to stop them from breeding. It's kind of a crazy story and one that I think I'm going to dive more into myself later. Hidden dead bodies in Jurassic Park Trespasser. I've never played Trespasser myself, but given from this, I guess Greenwood's body isn't the only one on that island. Sarcasm/Irony Island. This is referring to Isla Sorna, as that's what it translates to in English. This island, of course, is considered to be Site B, and is actually the initial home of all created dinosaurs before they're moved out to Isla Nublar. There's a lot to this island since 2 movies from the franchise are set in it, not to mention all of the games and one of Crichton's novels using this island as its main setting. This island has just as rich a history as Isla Nublar, and because of that, I can't explain it all right now. The common theme of abandonment in every sequel. Also can't find much on this, but I think this is a pretty self-explanatory piece of speculation, and one that I find plausible. The Gene Guard Act. The Gene Guard Act is a legal bill meant to protect the dinosaurs, while at the same time restricting InGen from cloning any more prehistoric creatures. This bill was created in reaction to the San Diego incident and was passed by the U.S. House Committee of Science in 1997. Alright, very interesting stuff, but we have one more section to go through, so let's go ahead and take a look at our final pieces of Jurassic lore. Cloud Island Slaughter. I couldn't find much on this one, which makes me disappointed because it genuinely sounded interesting. While I can't say for sure what this event is specifically, I'm assuming that it maybe has to do with the murdered inhabitants that Oscar Morales was a part of during the removal process of Isla Nublar's natives. Maybe it's hidden so well because that's what InGen wants. The entire franchise wouldn't have happened if Dennis Nedry said no at the beginning of the movie. This is an interesting theory, but I think Ian Malcolm's chaos theory still applies, and as a result, Jurassic Park could still spiral into a mess that would have spawned more sequels. So in a way, yeah, this franchise would have never happened if Nedry said no, but if we look at chaos theory, the park would have most likely still behaved in unpredictable ways and caused issues that might have given us a completely different franchise. The Tunsee Tribe. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but the Tunsee Tribe were the original inhabitants of Isla Nublar that were asked to leave the island so that it could be used to house the dinosaur theme park that would soon be Jurassic Park. In return, InGen promised homes, education, and medicine, but these were broken promises. While InGen did provide all of this, it was all very low quality. The tribe actually has a bit of history to them, one that's very interesting and sad when you take certain things into consideration. Where the Tunsee Tribe is supposed to be now, I have no idea, and it looks like that's something that's actually being speculated by others as well. The Burrows. The Burrows was the employee residence on Isla Sorna that featured in the Trespasser game. The residence came complete with special housing for both John Hammond and Dr. Wu, a store that held basic necessities for the employees, a cafe, a gas station, a plaza, and so on. The Next Step in Evolution of God's Concepts by Dr. Henry Wu. Not sure why this one is labeled as a game, but this was actually a book written by Dr. Henry Wu that discussed creating new species by combining ones that already exist. You know, the normal mad scientist shit. Jurassic Park was actually safe. I may be wrong about this, but I think this theory is trying to imply that Ian Malcolm's chaos theory was not applied to Jurassic Park, and that it was actually safe. I don't know, saying that out loud doesn't sound right, and I actually can't find anything on it. I'm interested to know what this theory might entail, so if you guys have anything, please let me know in the comments down below. The lore of Jurassic Park dates back to 1525. Jurassic Park has a massive amount of lore to it, so much so it even dates back to 1525, which marked the official discovery of Isla Nublar. Wanna know something even better? The man who discovered this island was a Spanish navigator named Diego Fernandez, and was given the name Cloud Island or Isla Nublar by Nicolas de Huelva due to the black smoke rising from the peak of Mount Saibo. And this is actually film canon, which makes things even more interesting. And lastly, we have Chronos for Life Jurassic Park. This is by far one of the strangest things I've ever seen Jurassic Park being somehow involved in. So there was an internet conspiracy a while back revolving around a single word, Eratus. Now, I'm not going to go in depth with this conspiracy, but just enough for you guys to get the gist of it. There had apparently been few mentions of this word, and nobody knew for sure what it meant or what it was. But one person speculated that it was a type of system used by third-party companies to access employee information. There was even an incident in which someone believed they were a victim of Eratus. This person ran a YouTube channel under the name of Chronos for Life Jurassic Park. This channel starts out innocent enough with what looks like a couple of Jurassic Park tribute videos, but eventually spiraling into something weird. Even the tribute videos hold something strange within them. One video has Morse code within its audio, the other has some weird messages within its captions. At one point, the captions literally say, "Overthrow the government." In his Q&A video, the guy actually says that Eratus is a copyright enforcement tool used by dozens of companies, which would make sense as he said the YouTube algorithm was targeting his tribute videos, which I believe he made for his deceased mother. And knowing YouTube and their copyright system, I honestly wouldn't be surprised. Now, this rabbit hole continues with the information that this channel has given from its cryptid messages, but it's too much for me to cover. I highly recommend Blame It on Jorge's video on it, as he explains what is known about Eratus, gives much more information and context that I wasn't able to add, and continues down this rabbit hole caused by this strange word. And that officially ends the Jurassic Park Iceberg. Wow, this was a long video. I honestly did not expect to do it this way. Originally, this video was gonna be a multiple part series with each tier of the iceberg being its own separate episode. But it was brought to my attention that, maybe it could just be all in one video. So I really took that into consideration, and I was like, alright, let's just write a script as if I'm making this one video. If worst comes to worst, I just have to make some minor changes to, end off each section as if it was just its own individual video. And it actually worked very well as its own video, and given from what I've seen from other icebergs, this just works well as one video. So yeah, I'm glad I was able to do that and change my mind to make it all in one video. The reason why I was even going to make it multiple parts was because I wanted to get some stuff out to you guys, like, just not necessarily like fast content, but just some content out. But just, it had to be something that I really wanted to do. I was kind of done just reviewing stuff for a bit. I just wanted to break from that and just wanted to do something different. And I just randomly ran into this trend watching a Blame It on Jorge's video. And I'm really glad I did that. It's hard for me to actually find a trend that I want to spend time doing a video on. So this was definitely something different that I've done on my channel, especially in terms of Jurassic Park. Like, I don't think I've ever done anything like this before on my channel, which I'm really glad that I'm kind of stepping out of the box even more, which is something I already kind of do on the channel. I always try to do something different. But I like to think that this is going to open the door for much more bigger projects and maybe a quality over quantity with my videos. So I'm kind of looking forward to that. I have a whole list of future projects that I want to get through, but of the ones that I for sure need to get through before I start any of those are my Primal review and then my upcoming Dino Crisis review. I want to get those out of the way, but I also want to make sure that I do them right. So those aren't going to be out for a long while, let me just tell you. But going back to the iceberg real quick, I just want to point out that I feel like there were some stuff that I may have gotten wrong. There were a few different things I got confused about on the iceberg, and I did the best with what I had, so I hope you guys understand. But feel free to make corrections down below. Aside from that, this was a pretty good list. I actually really enjoyed covering pretty much everything that was on this list. This was a bunch of stuff that I wanted to research in my own time just for fun because I wanted to know more about the Jurassic lore, and I just never really got around to it. So, being able to create a video and finding out all of this stuff that I wanted to know for a long time, it's like a win-win, So I'm really glad that I was able to take a look at all of this stuff that I wasn't able to before just because I was too lazy or I was too busy or it's just not the priority. But yeah, I'm really glad I was able to do all that research, even if it was pretty minor, because, this is really just a collection of summaries of everything that is on this list. But as far as the list itself goes, there probably are some things that I'd move around, maybe take out. I probably wouldn't have included the Kronos Jurassic Park one. That's probably the biggest one, just because the rest of this stuff seems to have more to do with the actual franchise. But with this one, this is more of an outside, mysterious kind of thing that really doesn't have much to do with the franchise, the more you think about it. I guess it has a pretty big involvement in that conspiracy, so I guess to an extent, yeah, it fits right into this list. But overall, it was the best iceberg that I was able to find, so I'm really glad that this was the one I was able to use. But I think that's pretty much all I have to say for now. I think I've pretty much updated you guys and pretty much said everything that I wanted to say in terms with just this outro and with this whole iceberg itself. So I'm gonna go ahead and end it here. If you guys enjoyed this video, then be sure to leave a like and subscribe for more projects like this. If you guys are new to the channel and you liked these kind of big projects, then you couldn't have come at a better time. I'm gonna do more of them, so stick around. Check it out if you like. That's pretty much all I have to say for now. Thank you guys so much for watching, and please, have a nice day.